Welcome back to Queens Behind the Scenes. I am Charise Beckett, and today we're talking about the pauses: perimenopause, menopause, and yes, something I just learned about, andropause. All the seasons of change that no one has really prepared us to talk about. We talked about puberty when we were younger, but nobody prepared us for this midlife, right? Because when life shifts, your body and your mind and your spirit shift too.
Right.
And this episode isn't about slowing down. It's about syncing up, honoring what your body is trying to tell you, and learning how to lead from alignment instead of exhaustion. And let me tell you, I'm so excited about today's guest because she embodies what it means to blend ambition with awareness. Jocelyn R. Taylor, a global brand partnership leader, a serial entrepreneur, certified executive performance coach, and the visionary behind holistic luxury living with Jocelyn. Welcome to Queens Behind the Scenes, Jocelyn.
Thank you,
Put your crown on.
Right.
You gotta put your crown on. Okay.
All right.
You are the bomb. So this woman has led at the highest level. She was publisher and CRO for Uptown and Viv Mag, executive roles at Black Enterprises. And today she's bridging the gap between corporate excellence and holistic living and wellness. Her 90-day self-healing immersion program is changing how we think about health, hormones, and the healing from the inside out through Ayurveda. And I'm so excited to talk about that because I had bought a book. I was going to an Ayurveda clinic because with hot flashes and all that, I was like, there's got to be something. So I cannot wait to get into that. Yoga therapy, smart tech diagnostics that decode the connection between gut, brain, and immunity. Listen, we have so much to dig into, Jocelyn.
Yes, let's go.
You've led at the highest levels in media and brand partnerships. What led you to shift from that world into holistic wellness and self-healing work?
Great question. Well, it wasn't so much necessarily a shift. It was a shedding, I would say. And when you are 35, 40, 35, 40, 45, and when you're in your career and you're growing and moving and making things happen, you're just thinking about that, the growth.
Yeah.
What's next? How I'm going to make my money? Where am I traveling? Be with my girls here or your family, whatever that may be. And what the society doesn't teach us, but your body is always, it's a machine that's always giving you the answers, but are we listening? And so when I was about 38 years old, I was wondering, like, I was always relatively small in terms of my frame. I always had muscles without having to work out. But by the time you're 30, your estrogen, and as we talked about the Andropause, when we talk about that, Andropause, I'm sorry, even in men, levels start to go down. And I couldn't understand, why am I small here, but why is my stomach so bulgy? What's going on around here? And this was around 38, but it wasn't, no one had talked to me about a Peri, a Meno, or anything. And you always associate that with that happens when you're older. But to your point, there's never any education around articulating it to say, no different than when you were a baby, and some of us may or may not have, but you didn't start off eating solid foods. You either were breastfed or you had formula or you had something. Then as you went in stages, the food became mash before you were introduced to something that was heavier. So why is it that when you're 40, and I'll even go back, when you're 10 years old, hopefully you're still not drinking breast milk, right? Hopefully you've grown out.
We've graduated,
Hopefully you've grown, right. So the point that I'm making is that these are all cycles. You mentioned also, Charise, you go through puberty. It's an honored, sacred, in some instances, people, it's celebrated. Like, she's now a woman, he's becoming a man. In my day and age, and I'll unveil later how old I am. Yes, I am in my 80s. No, I'm just kidding. But it was, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And we had books, or if you were in Girl Scouts, it slowly introduced you. Remember that? You'd learn about your period. You'd learn, in Girl Scouts, I first learned about it. You'd have a little box that was already, almost like a hope chest, that had your first little Kotex pad. And then back then with me, they had belts, which is crazy, to hold the Kotex pad. And all these other little gadgets. But nonetheless, you were being prepared for something. And it was pride around it, and you were looking forward to it. It was a cycle then. And so what happens is that when we get into this part, like I said, I didn't know what was going on. But at that time, someone introduced me and said, "Hey, Jocelyn, have you ever tried colonics?" And I'm like, "What's a colonic?"
Heard of it until recently, a couple years ago myself. So please explain what that is.
I'm going to tell you. Matter of fact, I have one scheduled next Tuesday. And what the amazing thing, there's a lot of misconception and misinformation around. These have been going on since the times of Moses. It's
Yeah.
irrigation. It's just water. And people get caught up in the fact that it's like, oh, I'm not putting anything back there. It's not any device going up inside of you. It's not, this is something probably about as small, about as the tip of your finger. And it just lays, it's lubricated, it lays at the end. And what happens is over an hour period, there's a series of warm and cool water that actually it's like an irrigation that goes up and gets, it's no more than if you were looking at a test tube. And even though water over time would just keep, it can still go through, you would start seeing sediment around the glass. And you'd
Yeah.
say, where did that come from? Because there's particles and things that you don't see that will still come through the water, but it still will now will stick to the glass. It's the same thing that happens with our colons, which is about 30. You have about 25 feet of it in the upper part,
Oh
and
my
then the
gosh.
lower
Wow.
part is your, and you've seen diagrams of it, where it looks like this, but it all, if you took it out, it would stretch almost 30 feet. And then your lower part of your colon or your intestines is about 5 feet. That's usually where the problem starts, because what we don't realize is if you're still eating a lot of dairy, processed food, meats, and everyone's different, and they'll say, well, I still like a good steak. I'm blessed that I was having a reaction, because to the point for some people who don't have reaction from certain things,
Yeah, they're eating it. They don't even know
they
what's
tend to think
damaging.
it's okay. It takes
Yeah.
literally 30 days for meat to process out of your body, for red meat, whether that come from a cow or even from a lamb, which I miss them, but I had to let them go just a few years ago.
So you don't eat any meat.
I don't eat red meat
You
anymore
don't eat red
because
meat.
I
Okay.
had an adverse effect, but it took time. And it's like anything else that I talk about. Things that calcify, stick inside of our bodies, inside of our minds, old ideas, learned ways that we've done things. Just because someone tells you, just like there's a
Yeah.
disclaimer on a box of cigarettes, it's bad for you, it can cause cancer, people still smoke. We know we're not supposed to drink and drive, but people do it.
People
So
still
just
do.
because
Yeah.
the first thing that we have to learn to do is understand, listen to our bodies that's telling us something. Like I said, I was grateful. I started it then. Just because I got a first colonic at 38, it didn't mean that what was happening was going to go away. It was an
Yeah.
assessment. So that person who worked with me said, Jocelyn, I see that you eat a lot of, and I'm like, you could tell all that because they're trained. They're able to see through your bowel movement what is happening or not. And interestingly enough, Charise, what was coming out of my body, it wasn't even anything that you could read. It was bubbles. And that meant, and I said, well, what does that mean? She goes, you're impacted with gas.
Oh my god.
She said,
I
do you see what
swear
I'm
to you,
saying? She said, you're eating too fast. So she said, you don't
I
chew
eat
your,
so fast.
right. So these are the assessments. She goes, you're eating your food too fast. You're not digesting it. The air is pushing back up into your upper. So it's not, since it's not being, it's fermented food. Plus you're telling me now that you eat a lot of, you're eating hamburgers and this, that, and the other. She goes, so it's, they can be able to take that diagnostics and look just from saying what's not happening, because it's not even so. Sometimes people, we wait until things are hurting us, or now the physical part is
Yes.
showing, and then we react, and then we want a
It's
solution quick.
reactive. It's not a proactive
Right.
approach
So
to
this was
health. Yeah.
proactive.
Right.
And then little by little, since she started introducing me, and then she goes, for 2 months, for 2 to 3 months, we're going to start working with you with just starting to eliminate, because you didn't get bloated. You didn't get impacted in just one time is not going to do it. She goes, you've got
Right.
30 feet to go up. We're going to do a
Yeah.
little bit at a time. And it's like we're scraping all those things that have now creates bloating in your body. And I listened to that, and I listened to even some naysayers were like, that's not good for you. It's almost like if you're doing, you're always going to have that. You're taking out the good bacteria. I'm like, I'm not, this is not a bacteria. It's almost just like, it's a cleansing. It's an irrigation. It's just like, so once I understood it, and I started doing them on a regular basis, but there was still more to learn. Then little by little, she asked me about, are you doing dairy products? Because now you're assessing like, well, why are you still getting bloated? So you have to start, like I said, Charise, eliminating.
That's what they say. It's like a commitment. Like I literally had run into one of my girlfriends at Trader Joe's a couple of weeks ago, and we were
Mm.
talking because I was at one point in time, her daughter was gluten free, like just because she was having some issues and she had taken her. And I was telling her how did it help her daughter? I'm asking the questions. Did it help her tummy? Like I was like, I've been thinking about just cutting some things, but she was like, it is such a commitment, because what happens is you have to eliminate and then gradually introduce things back into your diet to kind of see. I do want to ask about this. We hear a lot about menopause now. We didn't used to. We hear about menopause, but not all the pauses. I didn't know anything about perimenopause, and I don't know anything about andromenopause. So how do you define each Peri, Meno, and Andro? How do you define them, and what do people usually misunderstand about them?
this is a great segue from what we just discussed. I was actually, unbeknownst to me, that was perimenopause, because my body had started to shift what I may have been able to do a year before or even 3 months before. It was now, but you're not thinking anything's wrong until something outwardly happens. So I was that was perimenopause at 38, because it takes up to almost upward to 10 years. So perimenopause is that cycle of change when your body is preparing you for the final. Menopause is when you no longer get your period for 12 months.
That one day.
Right. So the peri is actually longer than the mena. So the perimenopause is now saying you're pausing, but this is where your empowerment comes from. But if we're not, I'm glad all these conversations are happening now. So I spoke to someone at my gym a couple of weeks ago. She goes, girl, I'm 43. I don't have to worry about that until like 10 years from now. I go, you're in perimenopause now. I said, but you don't realize it just because you don't think because you're laying in a pool of sweat I said, and then understand why you sweat. If you don't change how you eat in the peri time, the pausing of that peri, and you keep drinking coffee, but you're adding creamer. Well, all that creamer is processed stuff. The first thing you see on the back of it, it's like everything that's in it is a genetically modified organism that's sugar by any other name but the name sugar. So we have all different names for sugar now. So you're eating the creamer, and now if you substitute it with, let's say, even coconut milk, which people don't want, but if you had to have something in it, and then cinnamon. So it's not about eliminating to the point of like, what am I going to do? It's introducing something different that's going to substitute, that's going to be better for your mind, body, and spirit. Because that, not knowing that it was identified as I was going through perimenopause, it means I had to stop doing certain things, like having cow's milk, like eating processed bread all the time. And then once you start taking these certain things out, then you're able to go, wow, I feel lighter or better. But the way that our consumerism, capitalist society, and the way that we're constantly hit with marketing, you're thinking it's a learned behavior. I'm going to go back and eat the way my family eats. This is what we do because we're from the South. We have soul food on Sunday. But we're saying usually families follow the same patterns of things that are not best for them. And in these conversations, if you don't know better, how do you do better? So the perimenopause is just what I said. Your body is trying to let you know, Jocelyn, Charise, whomever, do something different. Maybe you need to walk more. But more importantly, a lot of things that we hold in are traumas from our childhood. And those traumas from our childhood, although it doesn't have to be anything where someone had to be hitting you or doing something necessarily mean. Traumas are just sometimes learned behavior. Us just being Black women in America or just being Black Americans, that's trauma. But we've masked it under, we're strong, we're resilient. Yes, those are wonderful things. But when you suppress certain things to the point that you've normalized it, how are you still getting help for it? And if no one's talking, if it looks upon someone as like, I don't want anybody to see me sweating, and you're behind the scenes doing it. And I, at one time, didn't know what was going on. I had a little fan. I'd be in meetings, and I would take the little fan and lay it between my legs while I was talking, because I'd be speaking to someone, but I didn't realize certain things that had sugar in them that were having an adverse effect on them.
Triggering your reaction, your hot flashes.
Right. And so I didn't have power in my pause because I didn't have enough information. Then I started to say with friends of mine that I was watching, they could be speaking to me like how we're conversing now, and they'd break out in a sweat. And I'm like, girl, you okay? And
no, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm in meetings. I didn't tell you. I'm in meetings. I was in a meeting like a couple weeks ago, and a woman said to me, she said, are you all right, honey? I said, I look like, it was like I was like this, and then I was a glazed donut.
And you know that feeling, and it comes from the inside. It's almost like if you could see it, it'd be like this. And it's coming up and it's crawling. And then you're like, shit. And then I'd look at my friend, my partner was with me in the meeting, and we already said we'd have the signal for each other. And I'd be like, and then she'd know, and then she'd go in the back, turn the fan on, she'd put it on my lap under the thing. And I'd look like I'm in a Beyonce concert. And I'd be talking like this, like my hair. So my hair was longer at the time. So it was like, why is her hair blowing? And she looks like she's singing the song, but I would be like, Lord, just be calm. It's going to pass. It's going to pass. But I didn't realize, Charise, it was food that I was eating. And I was in perimenopause. So women sometimes think it's menopause. Menopause is when you are completely done and you don't get
cessation
for 12 months.
For
12 months. Now, what happens why people say, well, girl, I stopped getting my period, because you still doing the stuff you did in your 20s and 30s. So if you have not changed, why are you eating the same way? Like I said earlier, when you were a baby, your parents weren't stuffing down steak in your mouth. You would have choked and died. And even when we first started being introduced to solids, it was mashed. Remember, we mashed our kids' food up. Our food was mashed up. And then you'd mix it with something. Well, why can't we have to learn that this sacred ritual that we're going through is just the natural aging process? Now, mentally, we understand it. We would honor it the same way that if you were on a boat and a captain came in, a small like a catamaran, not a big ship, and he said, you're going to have to start throwing things over. The boat is our body. Think of it that way symbolically. Well, get rid of that Louis Vuitton luggage. It's weighing us down. Are you going to hold on to it, or are you going to dump it? Because if you don't, you're going to capsize.
So you can live.
You want to live. And so if we start thinking of our bodies as that sacred place, we stop making excuses. So holistic luxury living with Jocelyn, the brand that I have segued and just introduced in the last couple of months, is about my journey. And I want to share this with other people because, as you mentioned, I come from way long time ago corporate. I worked at Price Waterhouse out of college. I've worked as a buyer at Lord and Taylor. I've done, oh my God, I worked at WorldCom, which is now, I think, matter of fact, there's no more Lord and Taylor. Wow, so I'm dating myself. This year in March, I like to say sexty. I am sexty. I'm not 60. And I feel like I'm on top of a mountain, not over a hill, because I have all this knowledge. But I just knew that even through COVID, I worked out. I had a gym near my home that was open. It was part of the YMCA. Thank God, because not all Ys were open. They would bring their equipment outdoors. So I felt like I was in Navy SEAL training. You know, when we were outdoors, we didn't have to have our masks on. When we finally went in for that first year, we still wore masks. So I'm still doing push-ups. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to go on my knees because I don't want to mess my knees up. I'm just going to perfect doing a military push-up. So how am I going to do that? I have to engage my lower abs. I have to make sure that they're in. I have to breathe a certain way. So all these different things using Ayurvedic wellness. Ayurvedic wellness is something that comes from the Eastern tradition of
Yeah.
Indian
I
people.
have a
Eastern,
book right over here
it's,
about Ayurveda. Literally, Ayurveda. I have the cookbook and everything.
yeah.
I do want to ask you, Menopause, like Andropause.
You wanted to hear about that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the Andropause.
You've got to tell me. I am so interested.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you how I found out about Mr. Andro. And I love how they put Meno on us. Andropause has been a terminology that's been, and I want people to pick up your phones. Anything you don't understand, Andro, 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 pause. It is 1,000% the same symptoms that we have as women that happen to men. The difference with men is they just call it a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually, it's like, oh, girl, you know why he's messing around. And then they go try to find someone 25, 30 years younger, or they get a new car. No, your testosterone levels had stopped dropping any old way after 30. It's just that they peak at that certain age. So now you've noticed a lot of guys, they start to have the gut imbalance. You see like this, but you know what? You can't drink the way you used to.
No,
you can't do so. You're the same. I've seen men. They get hot. They may not have the same flash because they don't have estrogen. They have testosterone.
mm-hmm.
But the same things that are happening to them. This phrase andropause was actually clinically recognized back as far as 1942. It wasn't
okay.
But so it's nothing that's new. How I came upon, once I said I do these monthly, I would say workshops, and through my 90-day immersive to introduce people to it, I'll have a workshop each month about a different topic. But it's like how to access intentional living through holistic luxury living. And the luxury is in the wealth of understanding your body, your mind, and your spirit. And so when I found out about Andropause, it was because initially, Charise, I said, when I do these sessions, I want men to be part of it. I don't like silo groups. I know I'm Black. I'm a woman. I don't need to just be around magical Black women, hence Black Girl Magic. If I need them to understand me, then I need to have them in open forums where they can feel curious, they can ask questions, and they can learn better, opposed to, no offense, but no, because you're getting your information from media and also in small circles of people that have not, been open to being objective. Because again, it's just learned behavior that's misinformation often. So I said, I want men to be part of it so that when they have partners that are going through this natural cycle, that they won't feel judgmental, or maybe they'll be even more empathetic because they'll understand. It's not like, oh, you know how she acting crazy because that period thing. No. So in doing my research, the word andropause came up and I go, oh, wait a minute. There's a real clinical. And so what happens with men get testosterone replacement. There's a lot of things that they do quietly that's just not marketed or advertised. So they advertised when that little blue pill came out because that was sexy, right? Oh, take your little blue pill. You can,
And you know
for
that that is
ED.
covered by like insurance.
Yeah. But women don't have, but it's different from us when we want to go and get, and I know a place if they're interested later through you, in New York, there's a doctor that works specifically with homeopathic natural hormone replacement. So it's not something that will come back and bite you in the butt later, where often
Yeah.
sometimes cancer can be detected. But I didn't, once I realized what was going on, I minimized what I was drinking, but I particularly made sure I didn't drink a lot of mixed alcoholic drinks like the browns, like the rums and the bourbons and such, because what happens, those carbs, your body doesn't read the difference between a Skittle and an apple, because those are natural carbs that come from like apples and vegetables, and there's the same ones that come from the obvious ones that are processed like candy and other things, and other processed foods like in breads and sugary items like from Dunkin' Donuts or wherever. It doesn't have to be Dunkin', any type of food like that. So what happens is that I mentioned earlier with the colonic, once your saliva is part of what's supposed to break your food down. Often, and my father used to say it to me when I was younger, Jossie, chew all your food, chew it till it's liquid. Well, it's hard to do that. And that's where you chew too fast, you don't swallow it, and then it gets fermented in your belly. That's why I take the second thing I do for the last 12 years, I take a probiotic every day.
Yeah.
Because what that does, the acidophilus in the pro, and in the ones I take are pro and prebiotics, it will then help mitigate that part of that I didn't make liquid in the chewing process. And often, how many people that really chew to the point that everything turns into liquid? I mean,
No,
I can't. I tried
I
it.
can't do
I
that.
try to stay conscious, but it's hard to do. So once it gets to that part of your abdomen, and now that's where the natural enzymes are supposed to break everything down for you. Well, if it doesn't happen, that's where that probiotic comes in, the pro and prebiotic. It will help access, like remember Pac-Man the game? It'll come in there and get the rest of that stuff and break it down so that the natural process go into your lower intestine will not, and that's where people sometimes get IBS and Crohn's disease and other things that happen because it doesn't happen one time. It's years of doing the same thing. And that
Yeah.
felt normal until something happens, and that's the collision. So with andropause, you will, if you understand that these pauses are part of the natural process of living. I mean, I don't want to be. I want to be, hopefully, be 80 or 90.
Right.
My grandmother lived to be 97. So I try to say, both grandparents. Well, the one lived almost to 100, but she just died in her sleep. But she walked all the time. And so there's certain things that you have to do. And I'm going to tell you the number one thing where it starts with is how you think. Because this is where so much stress comes from that turns into cortisol, that turns into later into the things, the visceral fat that lays in our body,
Yes,
inflammation.
inside around
Yeah,
your organs.
everything. So what happens on the inside of you is often, and because I've been practicing yoga for 10 years, and then this past year, I got my certification in yoga therapy and instruction. So I can actually sequence and teach, a class.
A yoga certificate. I have the 200-hour certification, and I
Nice.
was just about to ask you about that because obviously that really when I read all of your background, it really synced
Hmm.
up really well with mine because I have the meditation. I meditate, and I have my yoga certification, which includes breath work and all of that. And
Hmm.
you merge yoga therapy and Ayurvedic science and even smart tech diagnostics. I'd love for you to explain like how they work together to support hormonal balance and energy renewal because
Oh,
I know that
perfect. And I'm doing a session tomorrow, actually, called,
I saw.
yeah, my session tomorrow in Montclair. I'm in New Jersey. Is going to be What's Your Power Pause. I've got about like 25 people coming. It's great, and men and women, by the way.
That's
I
awesome.
love that men are coming out, whether they're bringing, coming with a partner, or some of them are my own buddies. And I like that some younger women are coming well, like in their late 20s and 30s, because they'll be more prepared than we were, assuming that you're in your 20s. But they'll be more prepared, and that, because I don't want to be presumptuous. You're like, girl, I'm 25. What are you talking about? But they'll be more prepared because now knowledge is power, and they'll understand like why I feel this way. And I met a young lady in my last session. She said that she started going through menopause at 29, but it was because of this shift that was happening. She had so much traumatic stuff that was happening in her family. So that's what I'm saying. That's a different segue. But how I combine all this together, Charise, is that when you spark something in your spirit to be curious and to want to know more, you will start being surrounded by or attracting other like-minded people, so that when they share information, you're open to receive it, instead of like, I don't do that. So I choose only organic fruits and vegetables. And some people may say that's a waste, but when I go to the doctor, I'm not on in some people think by the time you're 60 you're supposed to have like your LDL
Medications.
high, or you a diabetic, or you this. You don't have to have that. So it's all that you this is preparing you. So what I did was, in terms of Ayurvedic stuff, is that I started doing pulling with coconut oil probably about 10 years ago, because I just thought it was a great alternative. It says it makes your skin look great. It's great for your gums, your digestive system, even though you don't swallow it. But it's something that, and this is 5,000-year-old practice. You put the coconut oil, whether it's in the liquid form or it could be in the lard form. Preferably, you want it to be organic, and you just pull through like you're squishing. You don't gargle, and you just let it go through you do it for about 10 minutes, and it pulls out all toxins and such, and anything that in your mouth, a freshener, and then you spit it out. I don't use fluoride. I stopped using fluoride 15 years ago, because studies have shown that fluoride does cause Alzheimer's. It's one of the things that can lead to it. That's saying 1,000%, but I don't use fluoride, because fluoride, you have to go to the root causes, which is what I'm doing. Why would we have fluoride, included in our water before? Because our water system wasn't filtered as well as it should be at one point. So you had to kind of add those things back in to mitigate the bad chemicals that were being put in to kill the germs. So it's like one canceled out the other. But we don't need fluoride like that anymore. I also drink filtered water. So I went to a homeopathic doctor a few years ago, over 10 years ago, and he said, I go, but why am I so bloated? This is after now 10, 15 years after I had been getting the colonics. He said, Jocelyn, there's a lot of chemicals in bottled water, in addition to microplastics. The water you buy that's sitting for a long time, it's over time that water. That's why you're not supposed to leave those plastic bottles like in your car, and the sun hits it and it's too warm. So there's always a chemical reaction to everything. Being in a holistic luxury lifestyle is just that. You're not doing exercise. The only exercise you're doing is being discerning. You're discerning, you're eliminating, and then you're balancing yourself. And it's a constant movement, like a cycle, so that it's not work. It's just how you show up in your life and take care of yourself. So as far as with that and working out, with the yoga, understanding, like you mentioned, the breath work or the pranayamas. No, there's certain breath work that I teach people just to relieve indigestion. Just to be like, you could just sit in your car while you're driving. There's certain breath work that you can do, just that can open up your blood circulation. And so when you're doing certain things and you know it, but you have to be specific. In my case, although I learned all this, and I went to an institution that was primarily Indian, so it's very much rooted in Hatha yoga, in the 5,000-year-old tradition. For the first 2 months, all we did was biology, anatomy, physiology. For a minute, I'm like, am I in pre-med? But
Have you ever thought about doing the going to like Bali and doing? I've thought about doing that like 2 week like.
I'm going next year.
You were so. I was thinking about it.
No, you can go with me. See, I'm doing
I want to go.
I'm doing a retreat. I'm doing a retreat there next year, because I do private practice for my life and health coaching, because I got my life and health coaching certification. So I work with at a full, it's not a part, it's more of a part-time. My friend who's a psychotherapist. He has a practice here in New Jersey. He has about 3 offices. So I work with him, because often in a lot of times in the Black community, they don't want to say I have a therapist, even though right now it's commonplace and it's not so much shunned upon. Like,
it's not as taboo as it
yeah,
used
right.
to
Like,
be
I don't
back
want
in
to
the
say
day.
I'm not
Yeah,
weak.
yeah,
I'm not weak, but
everybody needs one.
right. We especially do. And so he said, Jocelyn, I'd love for you to be the life and health coach here, because he has hypnotherapy, and I'm learning Reiki right now. I'm in practice for Reiki.
Reiki, okay.
Yeah. And I practice Reiki. I get reflexology. So these are the things that the cyclical. I'll get massages just because I'm like, I want a lymphatic drainage. I want to just, get all that gook and stuff out of my system that I may not see, but I don't need to wait for it to become a crescendo and then everything crashes. It's like, it's time for me to get this. Why not? It doesn't have to be my birthday. So what I do there is that, which is separate, but now I'm introducing holistic luxury living to the clients that I work with, is that he said sometimes people just want somebody they feel they need to talk to, but they're not ready to claim it as a psychologist or a
Yeah.
psychotherapist. He said, so if I'm saying I'd like you to meet a life coach. They're like, okay, I'm cool with that because it's just a matter of semantics.
This is life. Yeah.
Right. But I'm still doing NLP, which is neurological, or should I say, neuralistic programming. I'm still doing all those things I was trained on, but it's just maybe less of a bite to whomever hears it because it's now like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just talking. It's like, okay, but I'm still
Yeah.
going to access your information different because I'm going to always go back to childhood. I want to know how you respond to things. And it's just like the colonic that I compared you to, I compared when I spoke about it earlier. I'm watching the stuff that's not being said. Like they're watching, she might have seen just bubbles come out of me originally, but the bubbles meant that it was something, it was a reaction to something that was happening inside of me. And you're just thinking like, oh, it's just bubbles. Bubbles means there's gas. So that means you
Yeah.
have such impacted gas in your body. That's going to create inflammation. So you take that, and then the holistic wellness part is really how you start thinking. And so once you can help a person, because there's no need, the Charise, when people are like, I want to lose this by my birthday, or it's the new year.
Yeah.
Those things never know why they don't last. Because it's an exercise to just get to something instead
It's
of
to get
how
to
to be
it's not about a
something.
lifestyle change or shift. It's about me meet this goal for this moment.
Right. And then once you incorporate in your mind, so as you had prefaced earlier, my 90-day healing immersion is about how do I help you show up better in your life? It's like basic training. You don't go to basic training and then you go fight in the war. Well, hopefully you hope not. They're getting you prepared to know how to be prepared. And then that's
Because
it.
if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
There you go. So now your instincts have now been sharpened. You have a new clarity in how you're going to think about something. That's a discernment. You're eliminating naturally because you're like, that doesn't work for me. And I'll take it even further. This goes with people that don't serve you anymore. We're talking about it can be a family member. It can be
Energy.
how you date. Energy is everything. That's what chakras are. So I go deep within your chakras, starting from the head all the way to the root. And I can tell when it's an exercise I do called the Wheel of Life. And I do this even in my sessions that people can fill it out. And then they put a dot in that wheel. Like it might be 10 different things that go from spirituality, work, family, all kinds of relationships. And then you put your dot at the very top where you think it's vibing high, middle where it's, it's like, no big deal here or there, or at the bottom where the lines meet. And then by the time we finish, I ask them to connect the lines. And I could tell them where they have where their chakras or their energy points are blocked. For instance, if you have blocked with this in Sanskrit, it's called Vishuddha or your throat chakra, probably very often when you were a child, your voice was suppressed. You weren't allowed to speak up or speak out, or it could be in any type of relationships. You felt like, and then you normalize it. Often we as women, we start having stomach issues because it's energy, it's going to shift down here this into your solar plexus, and this is where your stomach is. So if you're having like moments of saying like, "Ooh, I had a gut feeling," well, when you have a gut feeling about something, because all our energy starts right here in our gut, believe it or not. And it seems strange because you're like, doesn't make sense, but I was thinking that. Well, everything is shifting. And that's why sometimes when you're upset or right before a test or something big is happening, why does your stomach start hurting? You're thinking, I'm thinking about it, but why does this hurt? Because we're all interconnected from the inside. We're 60% water. So
Right.
we have to understand how to act. And so when you go through my 90-day program, because you can't do anything on one sit, I will help personally with you sit down and we will access this through life and health coaching, because I'm big into nutrition and understanding it. And then another thing that I'd like to share with the listeners, look up the Yuka app, YUK. It is such a great way that all you have to do is take your phone. We download everything else. We're looking to follow something that's going to help you. Look up the Yuka app, YUKA. I'm not endorsing them. And all you have to do is when you get to the store, whether it's something topically you're putting on your skin or whether it's particularly food that you put in your body, you put that QR code up on it and boom, it reads it. It tells you from 0 to 100. I've had stuff come up 0. And when I was introduced to it a couple of years ago, this is still me thinking like I'm on top of stuff because those first 3 ingredients in anything tell you what the higher index is. And I said, the person saw me squinting and I saw a person, she goes, have you ever heard of the Yuka app? And I'm like, I'm not familiar. I downloaded immediately. Charise, I'm not kidding. Out of the 12 things I had in my basket, everything went back on the shelf except one. And this was stuff that I thought was good for me because remember, marketers are smart to know how to now,
Package it.
cage-free eggs. What are you talking about, a cage-free egg?
If you can't get him started on that, he's like, what does that even?
It means nothing. And so I spend more for my eggs, probably $3, $4 more a carton, but I buy Vitale eggs because you can see the difference.
Those are the ones I buy.
Yeah, Vitle. And
Yes,
when
I
you
love those. Those are the ones
and
I
you know
buy.
the difference. And this is when I'm saying if you haven't,
They have great packaging. I tell you, that's
yes,
drew me in,
and
but
the
I didn't
butter
realize
also.
how good they. So I use I buy their eggs and even their liquid
Butter.
eggs
Butter too.
and their butter. Yeah, I have their butter.
Yeah. And here's the beautiful thing about it. How you'll know the difference is when you crack that egg, it doesn't smell. And the
Nope.
yolk is this big and it's almost like an African sunset. It is marigold. And it's almost this beautiful, perfect egg because it doesn't have any antibiotics. It doesn't have the chickens. Because remember, everything is passed down molecularly. So the chickens are not, whether they were cage free or hanging out at a party behind the barn, you're not going to get all those things that are transferring, just like we talked earlier about mother's breast milk.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
A lot of times kids start their first food allergies and such because their parent is or their mom is allergic to something that she didn't realize that the baby system couldn't take. And then they start breaking out and having rashes because it wasn't
Okay.
something they ate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I watch also how in the blue zone countries, like in Greece and parts of Japan, why do 90% of these people, I was in Greece last year for a yoga retreat. And although I didn't visit this particular island, there's a couple of islands there that the average age is like 98. Most of 80% of the people live to be over 100. So instantly, I want to know, what are they doing? What are they eating? And I was in Crete, so I was on a retreat in Ierapetra. Flew into Herakli, and then we were in Ierapetra. So we were in a very remote area of farmland. It was very beautiful. So we literally, when I'd say, she was like, Jocelyn, would you like some peppermint tea? I was like, sure. She'd go back and she'd come back like Little Red Riding Hood with a basket of peppermint that she cut and then just put it in brewing water or make my smoothie. And she was like, what do you want in it? And I'm like, I'll have avocado, I'll have some carrots, I'll have this or that. And the next thing I know, she was coming back with a basket. I'm like, where'd you get that from? She goes, the garden. I'm like, whoa. I was like, and then they're big with the Greek yogurt, which we call Greek yogurt, which is such a great natural probiotic.
I love Greek yogurt. That's all
Yeah,
I don't actually eat any other kind now.
me either.
I don't because I mean, yeah, I don't. Now I want to ask about so you have your holistic luxury living 90 day
Mhm.
self-healing immersion. What have you seen shift most dramatically for clients once they commit to this kind of deep recalibration?
Right. Well, what I've seen, and it's great, and I have a couple of on the website. You'll see a couple of people that I was able to get their testimonials. Is that they feel alive again. They're
Yep.
tired. They're tired. They were tired of being tired, and they feel informed because now they can make an educated. And not to say that you can't go have some potato chips. You just don't buy the big,
And
but
it's every now
just
and
do
again,
things
it's
in moderate. Yeah,
moderation.
I love barbecue potato chips. By
I
the way,
love a chip.
no, I love
Okay,
a chip,
I love
but
a chip.
I love a barbecue chip. But what I'll do is I'll buy the small bag, and then when I'm finished with it, I know I'm not going to be munching throughout the night.
Like having
No,
it's
I'll
like
just
this
have two
huge
more.
bag. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know you're going to eat it. It's yummy. It's meant to be there. It's supposed to be there. It's supposed to make you. It's all the ingredients are going to have that reaction. So what people love is that now that have now emotional intelligence, and that they can now say, you know what, Jocelyn, this package, and I leave you with a lot of stuff, just like I threw a little gem right there
Mhm.
about the Yucca app. I can tell you about FODMAP diet, which is from your fermentable oligosaccharides, monosaccharides, and the polyols. And basically, it's saying that from the fruits and vegetables that we know and love, there might be some of them that might not be good for you. I had to let the ghost of garlic and onions go. Boy, I love me some sauteed garlic. But what I had to learn to do different. Remember, I said it's about doing
Yeah.
something. I could saute in it, but then afterwards, until I get the flavor out, I have to take the physical part out because if I don't, digesting it is going to make me blow up.
So you still get the flavor without the
And you
actual.
can do, and you can look, you can just go to your phone and just say, however you ask. I have Google, so I just touch it. I don't even have to type it in. Are blueberries high in, or low in FODMAP? And it'll tell me. But I have a chart that I give to all my clients so that they can either put it up in their kitchen, they can PDF it and leave it on their phone as a way of just to say, let me access this. But now let's use our phones in a smarter way. Use it as a dictionary, as a thesaurus, as a Dewey Decimal System, if you will. But use it in a way intelligently to say, does this make sense? Per case in point, I couldn't get my organic blueberries one time and I had the Greek yogurt and I just wanted to add some, I always add walnuts. I'll put some pumpkin seeds. I'll then put cinnamon and maybe a little clove, for taste, and then maybe just a tiny bit of manuka
Yeah.
honey, and I'll mix it in. Well, I went all over to two different stores near my home. I couldn't find the blueberries, and I cannot eat blueberries unless they're organic because now it's in my head. So I said, you know what, blackberries are good. That's another dark berry. Girl, I went and got the blackberries. I might have got 4 or 5 of them because they're
They're
bigger.
big. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I chopped them inside. About 1 hour later, all of a sudden, I was like, "What's going on?" And my stomach just started blowing up, and I was like, "What?" And it was cutting. I was like, "What is going on with me?" I felt like I was in the final scene of Braveheart where he was getting done, and I was like, "Oh God, what's that?" And I couldn't understand it. And then I said, "Wait a minute, is this the moment that I've crossed over that I can no longer do Greek yogurt?" Because I was thinking it was like, you never
You
know
thought
that
it
shit.
was
So I was like, it's something that I ate that now maybe I could eat it a week ago, but no longer I can. And I go, wait a minute, what was the see how now I was able to do process of elimination. And this is what you said, this is what clients are saying now. They're like, things that I thought were okay a week ago or a year ago or 20 years ago, I had to discover, but now I have the discernment to know. And I said, oh, wait a minute. It was the blackberries. I said, "Oh Lord!" And I said, "Are blackberries low or high in FODMAP?" Blackberries are high in FODMAP, and what happens? It's sugar. All these are just sugar. These are just
every
sugars.
name but sugar. Yes, we talked about
But no, but these are natural sugars that come in our fruits and vegetables. We have to honor what makes sense for us at what time in our life. So to mitigate the hot sweats, the night, all the people are never honest. But when I ask, well, what did you eat? Well, girl, I just had like 3 cookies. Listen, guys, when you're in the process of the elimination, you might not still be able to do it. Now, I'm through menopause. I stopped. My last period was when I was 53, and when I got it, I thought I was slowing down, but I was like, please let this be the last one, please. And then when the next month came, I didn't get it. Then the next month, but then within the 6 months, it came back, and I was like, no, it didn't. So then you have to wait for that whole 12-month cycle to
yeah,
go
it's a
again.
real
It doesn't
pain.
it doesn't happen like, but no one tells you that. So whoever's listening, know that it's not over just because a few months went by. It starts all over. And then when it keeps diminishing, you're like, you get to 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and you're like, man. And I was honoring it. I was like, I'm in menopause. I'm in
Man, yes.
menopause. Yeah. But now I also knew to exacerbate and do things that I did before. I didn't mean go back to dairy. I'm like, I left it alone. I kept
Yeah.
drinking filtered water. I get my water a filter on my sink, but I belong to a water club where it's literally filtered through shungite crystals, shungite and copper. And so you drink your energy. And so I just kept continuing. Now that I learned this is what I'm teaching people. I'm not asking you in the process of the 90-day, will you probably lose weight? You're going to be losing inflammation. And that's the first thing. But if weight mixes with that, and what's going to happen? The brain fog, not feeling good, depression. I'm not saying that this is a journey. So it doesn't mean everything's going to happen 90 days. You're just learning how to access things that were there within you that you just didn't know that you had access to because our medical doctors often don't tell us.
Yeah.
Remember a few couple of years ago, my LDLs were just a hot little high, but you also have to understand how they index. So just because a number, I'm just going to use 1 through 100 because that's not the number. Let's say if it goes 25 to 125, and then you come out at 127. Does that mean that you need to be put on a medication for high, not high blood pressure, for high cholesterol? No, it's only like 2, 3 points over. So we have to be smarter to do our own homework, look up stuff, have questions, ask more than one doctor, and just say, well, what is the higher index that I know that I'm in the red zone, that I might need to take this medication. So I looked it up myself, and then I changed even for my white blood cell count. I made sure that there's a difference between a red apple and a green apple. Green apples are more acidic. I don't do I love peppers, but I only do red peppers because again, green and yellow peppers are more acidic. So once you learn that, it doesn't mean that I had to stop eating peppers. I only do oyster mushrooms. I love the shiitake, I love the portobello, but they are acidic. So it doesn't mean that they can't be good for you or not good foods. You have to know what works best for your body.
Yeah.
But often it starts in our thoughts and what we're digesting mentally and physically.
So, what, as we kind of close in, what are some small practical rituals that you would recommend for someone trying to reconnect with themselves during this time?
Yeah, I would definitely say surround yourself with, positive reading. Or if you don't want to read, do an audio book. Like kind of pull away from just getting your information from looking what someone's doing on Instagram or
Or
TikTok
posting.
and
Like,
posting, right?
yeah,
Unless you
information.
have a brand that you need to now, and which because I was like that, and I know now I've got to rejuzz up my IG and such, because I always wanted to do something that was going to be, how could I help the next earthling or human, if you will? It's not about, look at me, my body looks good in a bathing suit. That's just not me. And
Yeah.
I'm an Aries, so I love being in the front. So it has nothing to do with that.
My husband's an Aries.
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with she's shy. No, I'm not shy. It's just that I know that I wanted a message that, how could I help the next person help themselves? That's just my personality. And so I think the thing that we have to do is just say, am I ready for this? Like, if you go to my website, which is www.holisticluxuryliving with Jocelyn. I know it's easy to find it on the QR code, but the first thing I say is, spoiler alert, this is not for everyone. This is not a trend. This is if you're ready to put the work in to know that your mental and health and your wellness is something that you want to put into your life as a way of just well-being. It's not because you've got a goal. The goal is, I just want to live with intention. So I think what I want people to do is start listening to different music, the solfeggio frequency. I give people that. I pair them with what works with each chakra. So if you're helping to release it and kind of that spiritual colonic, if you will, how to loosen things up if you're overthinking too much, if your pineal gland is overworking, which is your third eye, there's music that you can go on YouTube and just listen to it. Listen to something and take it slower. Because one of the things, since you practice yoga too, especially in hatha yoga, vinyasa just means flow. So vinyasa is going to be maybe more of and where people get nervous. It's like, girl, I can't stand on my hands like that. Well, if I teach you how to do your hands, you're not supposed to be like this. Your shoulders are always back. So if your shoulders are back and your hands are flat, you're not going to put any pressure in your wrists. So it's just a matter of, don't talk about what I used to do, what I always do. If you want to honor the pause, the natural cycle, the beautiful process that God gave us to live, you're alive. Are you going to worry about, what might happen or what you can do? And so it
Yeah.
starts with how you think, so that the way you think is going to be how you feel. And try to be around a tribe, or create a tribe of positive thinking people with you, instead of like, girl, you're going to die for anything. So, I like to get by. And it doesn't mean you don't have to stop being friends with them, but naturally, certain people are not going to be that next part of your journey. And like, I
Yeah.
always like to use a saying like, hey, everybody wasn't meant to get off the plantation. Some people are mudbound. Sometimes you need, and then that's when you have to have, again, that word discernment, to know that might not be the person for me. I love them and I respect them, but this next leg of this journey might not be where they go with me. And
I
then
think that
move.
Tyler Perry had said like something at he was like, he equated to like, when you get to levels, and sometimes people just aren't meant to fly at that same altitude as
Yeah,
you. You know
I
what I
like
mean?
that. Yeah, they might not fly the same, and it's okay. And you don't have to be mad at them. Like, well, that's my soror, or we've been friends since we were kids, and you can still honor that sacred place of where you met them. It doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful. And I also think too, Charise, you have to know in this space that you're guiding people, that you're not telling them what to do. And
Yes.
so you have to know, that's why this is an opted in thing. I want people who are curious. When I see somebody doing something, and if they ask me, I'm like, oh, I don't do that. Well, what do you do how do you keep your weight off, or this, that, and the other? How? And I'm like, well, as if you want to know, but I never try to ingratiate, you shouldn't do this if it were me, because they're only going to put up resistance. So that's why it's something that you have to want to do. And so if you're ready to show up in your life, then if I suggest to you, come with me to a yoga class. Maybe we'll start off with hatha yoga, where it's really about connecting slowly. And one of the things that my instructor said to me, which I think we can all attest to, we know that dogs live shorter lives. They live, we say there's 7 years to each human year. I don't have a dog.
I have
But
a dog.
okay, and so as you know, dogs breathe with their mouths open, which
Yes.
is why. But a tortoise, which I don't know too many people that own tortoises because they're big,
Me
but they
neither.
live for over 100 years. So it's about breath work, breathing with intention, and moving with intention, which are the asanas. And this, even how I'm sitting right now, I'm in an asana. Because I'm
Yeah, you are.
I'm, I'm in Dandasana. Dandasana means I'm sitting, but my back is my postural alignment's here. So I'm constant, even the banthas, which are locking. Most people, it's just what we may call, as women, we know them as Kegel exercises. You should always be, when you're sitting, you know, with your, I call it the Rudy to the Tootie, from your hiney all the way up. You should be locked in. And when you're locked, you don't have to worry about, like we see these commercials for poise. You don't ever have to be in a diaper. Don't normalize it because you see it with pop music and like, oh, 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 Sampic. I mean, that was a song in the 70s. That's a solfeggio frequency. Marketing, when you hear music that then sparks a memory of, oh, back then, I remember that. It's putting that dopamine in your, that chemical in your body. Now you're relating to it. You see people laughing and talking. You're like, I'm gonna get that GLP-1. Yeah. And you forgot the whole reason why it was even designed for diabetes. But now, but what if I could help you lose weight in a way that it's do it slow, and then you don't have to worry about. And then again, there's no judgment for people who want to take one or don't take one. But are you doing it for what reasons are you doing it?
Mm-hmm.
And so, are you want to do something for your health in the long run, or a quick result? Because when you do something quick, it's usually something you have to come back and clean up real quick too, to fix,
Yeah.
because you did that too fast. But you want to have the balance. So it's just my takeaway for people, like you said. I started in corporate years ago. I worked at Uptown Magazine, is when I became a publisher and chief revenue officer. I went on to another publication. He was the founder of Fiji Water. Matter of fact, that when I worked at Viv Magazine. So that put me in a whole digital world, completely different. And it was ahead of its time because he was a visionary. But then I realized, Jocelyn, you've put so much time into making millions for other brands and services. Come up with your own agency, which was JRT Multimedia. And I've done those types of things for people, for branding, marketing, PR. And about several years ago, during the height of Me Too, even it was right before that year, but it launched at that time, I came up with Layer Up. And that's my social enterprise business. Although I didn't know how to articulate it as such, because I had friends in the industry. Mark Moriel with the National Urban League invited me to come on and speak on a stage, and it became like almost like I was the antithesis to Me Too, was to be layered up. And it was just like the title Layer Up was just that. It's a social enterprise. How can I help amplify voices that that are doing good causes? And I can do that by setting up stages and interviewing people, and marketing other people's marketing initiatives through education. I could call it edutainment. Educating through entertaining, making it so that you can get hand raisers in the audience and people can ask questions, because people learn from different perspectives, going into
Yeah.
schools, going into nonprofit, going into corporate. And then we saw what happened with DE&I. It became like it was a dirty word, which has been around since
Just
the
like
late.
woke and every other word that they've
Right,
hijacked
right. And right. DEI has been around and it benefited white women first and
more
foremost
than anybody.
than anything else. And then it went to LGBTQIA plus, and then it went to veterans, and then we were somewhere in between that. But I came up with empathy, transparency, and inclusion. And that's what I was using on stages, because I'm like, when you have empathy, that means you're taking the time to listen to someone. And so I kind of melded all those things with the background, with my own pivots, a lot of falling, getting back up, falling, getting back up. But that's what builds your resilience.
Yeah.
That's what makes you layered up. That's what makes you layered up, right? And then the holistic luxury living part is the lifestyle wellness arm of the agency. So it's like, how can I help people help themselves better, feel good about themselves, prepare for the natural part of aging, which should be celebrated. You shouldn't say, I don't need to shave 5 years off my life. I'm not frozen in time. I have a 28-year-old daughter. So I don't want to, how long am I going to keep saying I'm 60? Why is that a dirty word? You look good for your age. No, I just look good. Why do I have to look good for my age? So we got to pay attention. This is another thing with especially women. Stop saying sorry about everything. Even if you're passing someone, just say, I beg your pardon, or excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Language is important. So it's, again, working with people and how they think, how they can get that icky, calcified, old habits and old hurts and wounds. And that takes time, but just teaching them how to access that so that they know it's okay. And that when this menopause, perimenopause, and now for women hearing this today, and men perhaps, that even a man can go, so this is what this is? It's called andropause? Damn. And then hopefully they'll look it up.
Yeah.
Be curious. Like,
Learn. Be
don't stop
curious.
here. Like, if I say something that you don't get, or even if you want to dispute it, good. Now the work's beginning. Because you don't stop it there. Be curious. That's the takeaway. Be curious about yourself, and then I'm teaching you, or guiding you, should I say, how to live from the inside out. So that now those receptors, when things are happening, you don't feel right, you walk in a room and you feel someone's energy and it doesn't feel quite right, you don't have to argue against it. Now you become, and we know this word in a different terminology, but it's a Sanskrit word called tapas, Tapas. And it just means to sit and observe. and feel even in the uncomfortable, sticky parts, because it takes you to that next part. And you're just sitting there and you become an observer. You don't have to respond anymore. You don't have to prove your point because you're comfortable. It's like, I am, therefore I am. And you're just like, okay. And again, I mentioned I'm an Aries, so we're quick to be like, no, I didn't say it like that. And that's old Jocelyn. Now I'm just like, okay, I understand. And I'm not even doing it with being with any contempt. It's like I'm learning. I'm in a cycle. I'm constantly growing. I'll be a better woman in 5 years, 10 years if God gives me, 50 years. Well, I don't want to be that long. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Huh? Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to be that old. But if God gives me to 100, just imagine how, and I still have this wisdom about me and hopefully, all my wits, I don't have to compete with anything because I am. And I'm just in that right cycle. And hopefully I can be an inspiration, to other people. And it doesn't matter if they're Black, if they're women. It's not about gender. It's not about your sexual preference. It's about, really, for me, it's about how we need to understand how to be human, because that's what
I
we
love
are.
that.
I
love that.
really feel that way. I've always felt that way. I'm glad I didn't grow up with prejudices, but I had to be aware. But it
Yeah,
didn't.
just awareness is
Yeah,
always good. Well, I'm super grateful and thank you so much for this beautiful, necessary conversation. You've given us language for some things most people experience but rarely talk about. And what
yeah,
I love the most about the dialogue is it reminds us that the pause is a punishment, it's preparation, and it's our body's built-in wisdom saying it's time to evolve. So
yes, yes, yes.
whether we're in perimenopause, menopause, or supporting someone through andropause, this is your reminder that every season still has purpose and we're allowed to shift, we're allowed to rest, and we are absolutely allowed to rise again softer, stronger, and more self aware. So, as you leave this episode, I want you to ask yourself, what part of me is asking for a pause? And
Oh, I
what
love
might
that.
happen if I finally gave myself permission to honor it? Because your power isn't how long you can run, it's knowing when it's time to recalibrate. Jocelyn, thank you again for gracing this space with your
Thank
wisdom and
you.
your heart.
Namaste.
Make sure you connect with her at Holistic Luxury Living with Jocelyn.com. It will be in the show notes. So I will have all of Jocelyn's details in there. I'm going to get some information from you, Jocelyn, too, we'll email around what other workshops and things you have coming up. But Queens, until next time, lead with grace.
Well, can I say something, Charise? You
Yes,
just
yes,
said
yes.
something real quick, Queens. From one queen to my queens out there listening. If there's a program, I mentioned I'm not in a sorority, but if it's your sorority, I'm doing something with some ladies here in New Jersey. I travel all over. Like I
Okay.
said, I'm going to Bali next year. I'm putting a group together. If you even want me to put a group of something together for you, specialized in, with your tribe. So
Okay.
if you wanted a couple, if you want something to, I travel. I do also virtual. But please let me know if you know other people, other unicorns that I can work with that are in the healing space. So that's what I'm saying. It's all about, I always say, and I'd like to leave with Ethiopian proverb, when spiders unite, they tie down a lion.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. That's
Well,
an
thank
Ethiopian
you.
proverb. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Until next time, we want y'all all to lead with grace, love with awareness, and honor your season because every pause carries power and
Yes.
every queen deserves peace. Thank you all, and I'll talk to y'all next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Charise.